Chapter 1 Arizona 3 Toys and a Lawmaker with No Chill. If this story weren't real, it should be. It confirms everything Darwin feared. Humans may have evolved from apes, but we're still out here jamming objects into body openings like toddlers with a new shape sorter. A U.S. proctologist once told a story that should be engraved above every courthouse in Arizona. A man in his 40s walks into the ER. He's sweating, pale, tight smile, like he's trying not to blink too hard. Something is wrong. Turns out he has a vibrating dildo lodged deep in his rectum. 18 centimeters, bright red, still turned on. The kind of hum that makes you question the laws of friction. When asked how it got there, the man answered with the calm, broken voice of someone reliving trauma. "My wife dropped it. I slipped. I stepped back. It just happened." Of course it did. The intern who first examined him ran straight to the on-call surgeon. "It's vibrating," he whispered. "It won't stop." The surgeon, without looking up, asked, "What kind of batteries?" "Duracell." He nodded slowly. "Then we're in for a long night." Here's the kicker. In his intake form, the patient noted this was not his only toy. There were 2 more in the bathroom. That makes 3. And that, dear listener, is where the state of Arizona draws the line. Because in Arizona, it is 100% illegal to own more than 2 sex toys. No, seriously, it's a real law. Arizona Revised Statute, Section 13-1411. No individual shall possess more than 2 devices intended or designed for sexual stimulation. So if this man had gotten caught in Tucson, he wouldn't just need a surgeon, he'd need a lawyer. And now let's talk about Harry. Harry Jenkins, collector, criminal, vibration enthusiast. Tucson, 1982. Harry Jenkins was a polite, balding man in khaki shorts and orthopedic sandals. He sold vacuums by day, but by night, he curated pleasure. Harry had a collection, no, an archive. 23 adult toys neatly arranged on floating shelves, all tagged, cleaned, organized by frequency setting. There was Mild Susan, the Anaconda, Buzz Aldrin, and Tina, Backup Tina. He wasn't ashamed. He wasn't even secretive. Harry believed in the future, and that future hummed. The party that changed everything. It started harmless. Harry invited a few neighbors over for board games. Mildred, the retired nurse, Dennis, the pharmacist, and sweet, elderly Linda, a widow with 0 chill. To break the ice, Harry decided to show them one of his less ambitious toys. A slim, wand-style device. "It's a vintage massager," he said. Linda smiled and placed it lovingly on the mantel. Harry didn't breathe, for 45 seconds. And then it activated. A low hum, then a buzz, then a full-blown tabletop seizure. The toy shot off the mantel, landed on Dennis's foot, and proceeded to vibrate its way across the floor like a possessed electric eel. Linda screamed, thinking it was satanic. Mildred grabbed a salad tong to trap it. Dennis tried to unplug the lamp. Harry simply whispered, "It's cordless." The party ended with broken wine glasses and 2 people in couples therapy. Then came Pastor Joel Grayson. When news of the party and the ER patient reached Pastor Joel Grayson, a local councilman with a Bible in one hand and a panic attack in the other, he drafted Legislation 469. No citizen shall possess more than 2 personal pleasure devices. 3 or more shall constitute a criminal offense. And just like that, Harry Jenkins, who had lovingly cataloged and maintained his collection for over a decade, was now a felon. The fallout. Harry tried to fight the law. He argued that the law infringed on freedom of expression, privacy, even property rights. But the court saw Buzz Aldrin as Exit B. He lost. He boxed up his collection, drove to Nevada, and opened a shop called Juicers and Massagers, which sells, technically, both. The law remains. To this day, Arizona enforces this absurd rule. You can legally buy a machine gun. You can own a flamethrower. But the moment you own a third vibrating silicone friend, boom, criminal record. Moral of the story. Some laws are written to protect people. Others are written by people who saw one too many vibrating objects and panicked. So, next time you pack for a trip to Arizona, double-check your luggage, because the third toy you own might just make you a fugitive. Chapter 2. Kentucky. Ice cream in your pocket is horse theft. Kentucky. Home of bourbon, bluegrass, the Derby, and a law so weird, so surgically specific, it makes you wonder what kind of lactose-fueled chaos happened in the 1800s to make this necessary. Let me say it plainly. In Kentucky, it is illegal to carry ice cream in your back pocket. That's it. No context, no caveats. Vanilla? Criminal. Chocolate chip? You're going downtown, cowboy. Put it in a cone and carry it normally? You're fine. Slide that cone into your Levi's like a dairy bandit? You're breaking the law. But laws, as we've learned, don't write themselves. So let's talk about the man who made this real. Meet Elwood McGrady, sweet tooth, no horse. Elwood McGrady was a man of simple pleasures. He lived on the outskirts of Lexington, wore suspenders without irony, and had the kind of beard that looked like it could trap small birds. He loved 3 things: ice cream, other people's horses, not paying for things he could lure away for free. See, Elwood had a problem. He wanted a horse, but he didn't have money, or a stable, or ethics. But what he did have was an idea, a cold, melting,
genius idea. The Dairy Conspiracy. It started one hot summer Sunday. Elwood bought a cone of butterscotch Ripple, leaned against a hitching post, and noticed something strange. A nearby horse began sniffing the air. Then, slowly, hypnotized by sugar and cream, it trotted over to him. Elwood wasn't even trying. The horse just came, like it had found its dairy deity. That's when the light bulb went off in his head, or maybe it was just the heat stroke. Over the next few weeks, he developed a routine. Buy ice cream, slide it into his back pocket, walk casually past public stables, let the horse follow, claim it was lost and now adopted. He called it the drip method. Locals called it the Great Cream Robbery. How to steal a horse without touching it. Kentucky law at the time was murky about horse theft. If you untied a horse, led it away, or rode off with it, that's theft. But if the horse followed you, by its own free will, that was a legal gray zone. Elwood waltzed right through it. By the time anyone noticed, he'd relocated 7 horses. 7! Each one more dairy conditioned than the last. They followed him like sticky, neighing puppies. Farmers woke up confused. Sheriffs frustrated. Elwood just tipped his hat and said, "She chose me." The trial of the century involving dessert. Eventually, someone talked. A young stable boy named Travis, who'd noticed Elwood loitering near the paddocks, melting cone in pocket, horse in tow. They brought him to court. The case was ridiculous. The judge, a man named Clement No-Nonsense Hargreaves, nearly choked on laughter. "You tellin' me this man seduced livestock with dessert?" "Yes, Your Honor." "And the horses just followed him?" "Yes, sir." "No ropes? No force?" "Nope." "Just a waffle cone?" The courtroom was silent. The ice cream dripped on the evidence table. The smell of butterscotch filled the air like guilt. And then Judge Hargreaves slammed his gavel and said the words that would echo through Kentucky history. "I don't care how he did it. If ice cream in a pocket equals a stolen horse, then let's write it down." And so it was written. That very week, a new law passed. It shall be unlawful for any individual to carry ice cream in their back pocket on Sunday or any other day, with or without intent to lure livestock. Boom. Justice. Waffle cone law enforcement. Elwood was banned from every dairy parlor in the county. His name became legend. His horses were returned, confused but well-fed. He moved to Tennessee and reportedly tried the same trick with cornbread and goats. Didn't work. Today in Kentucky, that law still on the books. Nobody's enforcing it, but it's there, lingering like the smell of bad soft serve in a hot truck. If you ever feel the urge to go for a walk on a hot day with a popsicle in your jeans, remember, Kentucky doesn't play with dairy-related deception. Moral of the story: you can lose a war, you can lose an election, but if you lose your horse to a stranger with dessert in his pants, you write a law, and you never speak of it again. Chapter 3. Alaska. Don't push the moose.
especially out of a plane. There are laws that exist to protect people. And then there are laws that exist because someone did something so stupid, so cosmically idiotic, that the government had no choice but to say, "Okay, nobody do that again." Welcome to Alaska, where moose are sacred, planes are everywhere, and gravity is a crime waiting to happen. Let's talk about the law that says it is illegal to push a live moose out of a moving airplane. Not tranquilize it, not load it, push it, live, while flying. This law doesn't come from theory. It comes from two men, one bet, and the worst birthday gift idea in North American history. The men behind the madness. Meet Randy Boone and Two Beer Terry. Two lifelong Alaskans, born in Anchorage, raised on snow, salmon, and stupidity. Randy ran a bush plane charter service. Terry was a part-time hunting guide and full-time bad decision generator. Every year on their shared birthday, March 14, they challenged each other to a stunt. Previous years included ice fishing in boxers, playing strip poker with real bears, it ended in stitches, and one attempt to wrestle a goose in a canoe. But in 1972, they outdid themselves. Over 6 rounds of moonshine and half a moose burger, Terry looked Randy dead in the eyes and slurred, "I bet you can't drop a moose out of your plane and make it walk away." Randy, who never backed down from a bet and had the brain activity of a potato at that moment, said, "Bet I can. You just gotta aim it right." The plan. Let's be clear. Moose are not aerodynamic. They do not glide. They do not land softly. They are 1,500 pounds of antlered indignation. But logic had long since left the bar. Randy had a decommissioned cargo plane and access to tranquilizers. Terry had a moose calf that had wandered onto his uncle's property. They loaded the poor animal into the back of the plane with a crate of cabbages and a mattress, just in case. The plan? Reach 300 feet, nudge the moose out gently, let it land on a snowbank, wake up, trot off like a champ, become a local legend. Instead, what happened was this. The drop heard around Fairbanks. The plane took off. Randy and Terry high-fived. The moose woke up early, inside the plane. Have you ever seen a 700-kilo ungulate panic in a metal tube? No? Good. It's not elegant. It kicked out a crate. It slipped on the cabbages. It barreled through the side door itself. And just like that, the moose jumped. Randy didn't push him. Terry didn't guide him. The moose made the choice.
Maybe it saw the mattress. Maybe it preferred death to further contact with Terry. We'll never know. It fell, gracefully, for about 2 seconds, and then it landed not on snow, not on the mattress, but on the roof of an outhouse, with a man inside. His name was Howard McClintock. He was on hour 2 of a stomach emergency. And when the roof caved in, he screamed, "Sweet mother of grizzlies!" Howard survived. The moose did not. The outhouse never recovered. The investigation. You can't just drop a moose on a man and not face questions. Randy and Terry were arrested. The charges? There were too many to list, so they made up a new one. Unlawful aerial displacement of wildlife. The trial was bizarre. The defense: the moose jumped on his own. The prosecution: they lured it in, mid-air assaulted it with cabbages, and created a biologically improbable missile. The jury deliberated for 6 hours, mostly trying not to laugh. In the end, Randy got fined. Terry was banned from owning sedatives. Howard sued the state for psychic moose trauma and used the money to move to Florida. The legacy. In 1973, Alaska officially passed a statute. It is unlawful for any individual to eject, release, or otherwise displace a living moose from an aircraft while in flight, regardless of altitude or intent. Translation: don't drop moose from planes, not even small ones, not even politely. You think this can't happen again? In 1999, someone tried it with a goat. Same town, different outhouse, similar screaming. The goat lived. Moral of the story? The sky is not a petting zoo. Wildlife is not airdrop loot. And if someone dares you to toss a moose from altitude, look them in the eyes and say, "I'm from Alaska. We already tried that. And we made it illegal."
Chapter 4. Pennsylvania. Keep your voice down. The soap is listening. There are crimes of passion. There are crimes of greed. And then there are crimes of Whitney Houston impressions in a bathtub with candles and bubbles in Pennsylvania. Yes, in the state of cheesesteaks and coal mines, it is technically illegal to sing in the bathtub. Not shout, not hum, sing. No matter the genre, no matter how good you sound. Soap operas are fine, but soap concerts? Criminal. And like all great American laws, this one wasn't born out of logic. It was born from a woman named Beatrice, a man named Larry, and one unfortunate evening involving a loofah, a hymn, and a house explosion. Beatrice and the Pipes of Glory. Beatrice Whittaker was a church soprano, an alto in denial, a woman of faith, fragrance, and fire lungs. She lived in Scranton. Her hobbies included cross-stitching Bible verses, aggressively watering her garden and singing hymns in her clawfoot tub every Thursday at 7 p.m. sharp. The bathroom was her cathedral, the echo divine. She wore a shower cap like a bishop's mitre. The sponge was her microphone, and the neighbors, well, they suffered in silence, mostly. Her favorite song? His Eye is on the Sparrow, at 110 decibels. Larry, the man below. Directly beneath Beatrice lived Larry Gunt. Larry was a Vietnam vet with tinnitus, hemorrhoids, and the patience of a boiling kettle. He enjoyed silence, whiskey, and polishing his Civil War replica cannon that his wife called a divorce in bronze. For 5 years, Larry endured Beatrice's Thursday concerts. He tried everything: stuffing socks in the ceiling vents, filing noise complaints, meditating with whale sounds, writing an anonymous note that read, "Please shut the holy hell up." Beatrice responded by switching to opera. Larry snapped. The bath heard round the block. One Thursday, as Beatrice reached the climax of Ave Maria, Larry decided to drown her out with patriotism. He wheeled his cannon onto the balcony, loaded it with blank powder and confetti, aimed it directly at the sky, and fired. The cannon misfired. The window shattered. The gas line trembled. The bathroom pipes, which had not been inspected since the Truman administration, exploded. Water, tile, and Beatrice's soprano flew into the air like a Broadway disaster show. No one died, but 3 people in the building thought the rapture had come. One cat is still missing. The lawmaker's dilemma. The story made local news, then state news, then national news under the headline, "Woman's Singing Voice Blows Up Apartment." That's when Senator Roger Withers, a man known for his allergy to joy, stepped in. Roger had a grudge against bathrooms. He once slipped in the shower and sued the tile company for emotional sabotage. He called singing a gateway to rebellion. So he introduced Bill 704. It shall be unlawful for individuals to engage in musical vocalization while bathing, showering, or otherwise submerged in a private or public aquatic setting. The Pennsylvania Senate passed it in under 12 minutes. Beatrice moved to Ohio. Larry was arrested for unlawful discharge of a historical weapon, but they let him go after he agreed to donate the cannon to a local museum, which still has a plaque that reads, "Dedicated to the day the music died, and then exploded." Today, in Pennsylvania, the law is still there, mostly ignored, but technically enforceable. If you find yourself humming in the tub and your neighbor calls the police, you might get a warning. You might get a ticket. You might get featured on a podcast called Laws That Shouldn't Exist. And yet, there it is, right between no ice cream in your pocket and no catching fish with your hands. But why bathtub singing specifically? Because it echoes, it travels. It makes everyone in a 3-mile radius wonder if there's a ghost or a very confident duck nearby.
and because Beatrice could hit high C like a freight train, while surrounded by steam, tile, and the fury of God. Moral of the story: never underestimate the acoustics of porcelain, or the power of one woman's voice to shake foundations, literally. And if you ever feel inspired to perform your entire Taylor Swift set list while soaking in bubbles, just make sure you're not in Pennsylvania. Or at least check if Larry lives downstairs.
Chapter 5. Florida. No skydiving on Sundays, unless you're a pastor. Florida. Where reality goes to sweat, all gators have legal representation, and laws exist in a twilight zone between maybe that makes sense and who the hell let this happen? Today's legal gem. In Florida, it is illegal for an unmarried woman to skydive on a Sunday. Correction, it was illegal, technically repealed, mostly forgotten, but the cultural scar remains. Like a sunburn shaped like confusion. And like every law in this series, this one wasn't born in a courtroom. It was born 1,200 feet above Jacksonville, with a woman named Ruby the Rocket Delaney, a parachute, a wedding ring she forgot to wear, and a small Baptist church choir that never emotionally recovered. The woman who fell too hard. Ruby Delaney didn't believe in gravity. Not philosophically, she understood the science. But spiritually, she thought falling was her love language. Ruby jumped out of planes the way normal people go to brunch. She wasn't military. She wasn't part of a skydiving team. She just liked the feeling of plummeting toward Earth while screaming, "I'm a comet, baby!" And people loved her for it. Ruby became a local icon in the 1950s. She wore red lipstick, aviators, and once ate a hot dog mid-jump. She signed autographs that read, "Don't forget to fall." But one Sunday morning, Ruby fell into history and almost into the Book of Revelations. The Holy Incident. October 18th, 1953. Ruby booked a solo jump near Tallahassee. It was a warm, cloudless Sunday. Her parachute was cherry red, her energy unstoppable. Unfortunately, the local First Baptists of Highwind Church were holding an outdoor sermon in the field next door. They were mid-hymn. The pastor had just declared, "Let the heavens open and show us a sign." And the heavens did. Suddenly, from above, a screaming woman burst through the clouds, limbs flailing, mouth wide open, yelling, "Yee!" She landed 20 feet from the baptismal font. The choir scattered like geese hit with holy water. 3 elderly women fainted. The organist resigned. The pastor? He collapsed to his knees and whispered, "The devil wears lipstick." The aftermath. Local news had a field day. Headlines included, "The Fall of Woman,
skydiving Jezebel lands in house of God. Ruby's rapture, is this it? Baptist pastor claims airborne temptress caused spiritual whiplash. People demanded answers. They discovered Ruby wasn't married and assumed, in their 1950s way, that this made the entire event sexually charged. A local councilman named Herbert Mudge, who hadn't smiled since the Hoover administration, drafted a law that very afternoon. No unmarried female shall engage in aerial descent activity upon the Sabbath, lest she offend God and gravity both. It passed, because of course it did. It was Florida. Ruby's response. Ruby read about the law in the paper, took a deep breath, and jumped again the following Sunday, wearing a wedding veil and flipping off the horizon. When asked who she married, she said, "Freedom, first name, Sweet." The sheriff let her go. No one wanted to arrest a woman who could land on your car from space. Ruby eventually moved to Nevada, became a blackjack dealer, and swore off organized religion, except for the Church of the Open Sky, which was basically her. The law lingers. For decades, the law sat like spoiled Jell-O in the legal fridge. Nobody enforced it, nobody repealed it. It just existed. A quiet reminder that in Florida, skydiving could offend the Lord, but only if your marital status lacked paperwork, and only on Sundays. The loophole, pastors can fly. The most confusing clause? Pastors, clergy, and anointed servants may descend upon the Sabbath in the name of religious outreach. So, a pastor skydiving with a cross is okay. Ruby doing barrel rolls in red boots? Not okay. That's theology, baby. Today in Florida. The law was quietly removed in the early 2000s when someone tried to add paragliding nuns to the state tourism brochure. But you'll still hear the elder mutter, "Don't jump on Sunday unless you're married or touched by God." Moral of the story: never mix sermons with terminal velocity, and never assume heaven is ready for you just because the air is clear. Ruby's legacy? She taught Florida two things. Gravity doesn't care if you're wearing a ring. Neither does God.
Chapter 6. Alabama. Thou shalt not wear a fake mustache in church if it causes laughter. Let's just say it. Some laws feel like they were written after an all-night sermon, 2 potlucks, and a Baptist elder's complete psychological breakdown. This one? Straight out of the Sunday Spiral. In Alabama, it is illegal to wear a fake mustache in church if it causes laughter. Let that marinate. Not just any mustache, not a real mustache, not a wig, a funny hat, or full clown makeup. Specifically, a fake mustache. Specifically, in church. Specifically, if someone laughs. You may be asking, who did this? We answer, a 12-year-old demon named Billy Dunn, and a Sunday morning prank
that turned an entire congregation into convulsing sinners. The Boy Who Mocked God's Upper Lip. Billy Don Weaver was trouble. Born in 1961 in Jasper, Alabama, he had a slingshot in one pocket and sarcasm in the other. His mother called him spirited. His teachers called him suspension-worthy. His youth pastor called him an omen. Billy Don had a gift for comedy. He could make a chicken cross the road backwards. He once got detention for drawing fake nipples on every Jesus in the Sunday school coloring books. But his magnum opus was The Mustache Massacre of '74. It started with a Sunday dare. One warm April morning, Billy Don made a bet with his best friend, Booger Ray. Yes, that's his legal name. I bet I can make Pastor Wallace laugh during his own sermon. Booger Ray looked horrified. Pastor Wallace hasn't smiled since Nixon took office. Billy grinned. That's why it counts. The setup. Billy showed up to church wearing his best tucked-in polo and cargo shorts. In his Bible, one carefully cut strip of felt dyed jet black with 2 pieces of Scotch tape. Right before the sermon, he snuck into the bathroom, taped the mustache on, and waited for his moment. Pastor Wallace began preaching about sin, humility, and the dangers of pop music. Billy stood up in the second pew, turned slightly to profile, and scratched his mustache with the gravity of a 1940s French detective. Laughter erupted. Silent at first, then full body, like God himself had tickled the whole congregation's ribs. Consequences of facial hair. Sister Margie gasped so hard she dropped her rosary into her cleavage. Brother Earl choked on a cough drop and had to be Heimlichished by a 12-year-old. Pastor Wallace paused. He didn't speak. He just stared. And then, in a voice so low it could curdle milk, he said, "This is the house of the Lord, not a damn vaudeville act." Billy Don was escorted out. His mustache flopped to the ground. The tape stuck to the pew for 3 years. Legislation from the Lord. 3 days later, the church board met in emergency session. Pastor Wallace drafted a letter to State Representative Carl Dean. Carl was a man who took pride in never laughing. His hobbies included tax code and watching C-SPAN at half speed. He read the letter, grunted once, and introduced a bill titled Prohibition of False Facial Additions in Houses of Worship when said items provoke unrest. No one questioned it. No one asked for examples. It passed. Just like that, fake mustaches became illegal in Alabama churches if they cause laughter. If they cause fear, that's apparently fine. Billy Don today. He grew up, moved to Tennessee, and became a ventriloquist. His dummy named Pastor Wallace, with a mustache. Full circle. Today in Alabama, the law technically remains. It's rarely enforced. But if you show up to Sunday service with a Groucho Marx disguise and someone snorts, well, congratulations, you're an outlaw. Moral of the story: God may forgive sin, But Alabama doesn't forgive punchlines, especially when they have tape on the back. So next time you're tempted to bring some levity into the Lord's house, remember Billy Don, remember the mustache, and ask yourself, is this worth jail time? Or is it just a solid 710 joke?
Chapter 7. Ohio. You can be arrested for a suspicious fish. Ohio, land of cornfields, college football, and, apparently, aquatic profiling. Because buried in the dusty creases of its local statutes is this legal gem. No person shall fish for, catch, or possess a fish appearing to be suspicious in character. You read that correctly. Not poisonous, not invasive, not carrying a weapon. Suspicious, as in shifty eyes, untrustworthy fins, maybe plotting something. And no, this isn't a metaphor. It's a real law. And like all bad ideas turned binding, it started with a lie, a fishing contest, and a catfish with googly eyes. The contest that reeled in madness. Every summer in the modest town of Crankville, Ohio, pop 842 and 3 raccoons with political power, the local Elks Lodge hosted the annual Big Boy Fish-Off. It was simple. Catch the heaviest fish. Get your name on the wall of wet glory. Win a $75 gift card to Bass Pro and a handmade trophy shaped like regret. Enter Cletus Ray Dobbins, age 44, professional bullshitter and part-time taxidermist. He'd entered 11 years straight, placed top 10 once, lost to a 12-year-old with braces and no remorse. But this year, 2003, Cletus had a plan. The fish that shouldn't be. 2 nights before the competition, Cletus showed up at Crankville Aquarium and Tire Repair, a deeply unregulated establishment, and bought a dead catfish the size of a toddler. He smuggled it home, glued googly eyes onto it, and injected it with melted lead fishing weights. The fish now weighed 43 pounds and looked like it had seen God. Cletus froze it overnight. Then, during the contest, he staged a catch by throwing it from a canoe and reeling in slowly while humming the Jaws theme. The judges were suspicious. The fish was too silent. Its eyes twitched in opposite directions. One judge poked it and whispered, "Something ain't right. This fish knows things." The unraveling. Upon closer inspection, the following red flags were noted. The fish was ice cold on a 90-degree day. Its mouth was glued shut. It was wearing eyeliner. One googly eye fell off and stuck to a judge's clipboard. Cletus claimed the fish was just shy, but by then rumors had spread. It's a spy fish. It's demon-possessed. It's not even from this state. Eventually, someone called Sheriff Darnell, who arrived with a net and an open mind. The legal leap. Cletus was arrested. The charges, hard to say. Fraudulent fish handling, aquatic deception, possession of a crustacean with impersonation. The town had no laws for this. Until Councilwoman Brenda, who once sued a duck, introduced a motion to prohibit the catching or presentation of any fish deemed by local authorities to be suspicious in character. It passed 6-1. The lone dissenter was Old Man Heb, who shouted, "They're all suspicious. Have you seen a trout's mouth?" Cletus today. He served community service, cleaning aquarium glass at the Crankville Gas and Go. He now hosts a podcast called Fishy Business, where he interviews taxidermied animals he glued together. His most recent guest, a squirrel-pike hybrid named Greg. Today in Ohio, the law remains. Is it ever enforced? Probably not. But is it technically illegal to catch a fish that looks at you funny? Yes. So next time you pull something out of the water that seems too calm, too quiet, too philosophical, throw it back. Moral of the story: don't cheat at small-town contests. Don't trust fish with human eyes. And never underestimate how quickly a dumb lie can become state law. Ohio doesn't play when it comes to fishy business. Neither should you.
Chapter 8. Idaho. You can't give someone a box of candy over 50 pounds. Idaho. Land of potatoes, polite desperation, and apparently limits on how much love you can legally show in chocolate. Because once upon a legislative meltdown, someone wrote, "It is unlawful to give a box of candy weighing more than 50 pounds as a romantic gift. Not 60 pounds, not if it contains bees, 50. Which means, if you give your sweetheart a 51-pound nougat brick in Boise, you're not sweet. You're a criminal." And as with every glorious, idiotic law, this one started with a man, a crush, and a chocolate avalanche that nearly ended in a diabetic coma. Meet Russell Big Feelings Crankshaw. Russell wasn't subtle. He loved big. He felt hard. And he had the emotional restraint of a Labrador retriever after 3 Red Bulls. He lived in Twin Falls, Idaho, worked at a mattress store, and had a soft spot for a woman named Charlene Gibbons, the assistant librarian who always smelled like vanilla and emotional boundaries. For 2 years, Russell had tried everything. Winking, badly. Worse. Poetry, worse. A mariachi band on her birthday. They were drunk and played only La Cucaracha. Charlene politely declined every advance. But Russell wasn't done. No, no. He had one final plan, a gesture so grand, so undeniable, that it would melt her heart. Literally. The Chocolate Incident. Valentine's Day, 1978. Russell ordered a custom-made 66-pound box of assorted chocolates: fudge, caramels, truffles, peanut clusters, mystery blobs, and something called blackberry meat nougat. It was 4 feet wide, tied with a red ribbon, delivered by forklift. Charlene opened the door in her reading glasses and saw a confectionery coffin. Russell stepped forward, holding a handwritten note that read, "My love is heavy, so is this. Say yes and eat your way in." Charlene said nothing, mostly because she had a mild nut allergy and could smell impending doom. She refused the gift. Russell, devastated, dragged the box back home like a soldier retreating with a fallen comrade. And then, as any romantic would, he ate most of it himself in one night. The medical fallout. At 3:47 a.m., Russell arrived at St. Marie's Hospital in what can only be described as a nougat haze. His blood sugar was measurable in spoonfuls. He was sweating syrup. His pupils were dilated like 2 malt balls. The nurse on duty noted, "Patient smells of fudge, eyes erratic, declares he is made of sugar and pain." They pumped his stomach. It took hours. They later discovered he had consumed 39 pounds of the gift. That's more than a toddler. That's more than most household pets. That's ambition. The legal meltdown. Local media picked up the story. Headline: "Man nearly dies of rejection and caramel." The mayor called it deeply concerning. Parents panicked. Teenagers tried to replicate it on purpose. A state senator, who had just survived a failed anniversary gift himself, introduced a bill to prevent endangerment through excessive romantic gesture and confectionery force. Thus was born the law: no person shall gift a box of candy exceeding 50 pounds in weight as a romantic offering. No one objected. Russell today. He survived. Eventually married a woman named Doris who preferred salty snacks. They now run a peanut brittle stand at the state fair. Charlene moved to Oregon. Her only comment when interviewed was, "He meant well, but I really hate nougat." Today in Idaho, the law is rarely enforced, but still valid. Stores joke about it every February. One shop has a sign that reads, "Chocolate is love. Too much chocolate is a lawsuit." Moral of the story: love is heavy, but not over 50 pounds, according to Idaho. If you want to woo someone, write a poem, buy them flowers, make them dinner. Just don't deliver romance by forklift, because in Idaho, that's not love.
That's probable cause. Chapter 9. Indiana, thou shalt not bake horse into thy pie. Ah, Indiana, where basketball is a religion, corn is a currency, and meat pies, well, they once had a dark little secret. You see, tucked inside the food safety laws of the Hoosier State is a very pointed regulation. It is unlawful to sell or distribute meat pies containing horse meat intended for human consumption. Not dog, not raccoon, horse. That's how specific it is. Which begs the obvious question: who put horse in the pie? The answer? A man named Chuck. A festival called the Great Indiana Bake-Off. And one traumatized 4-H club that still won't eat pastries to this day. Chuck the Butcher. Chuck wasn't a criminal. He was a competitor. Owner of Chuck's Legit Meats and Stuff, he prided himself on having the weirdest jerky in Indiana. Gator sticks, smoked turtle, opossum sausages, a limited run snack called cryptid nuggets that were just rebranded goat. He believed in pushing culinary boundaries. He believed in strong flavors, high protein, and never reading labels. And one day, in 1984, he found a loophole so big it kicked. The bake-off that broke everyone. It was a bright spring afternoon in Bloomington. The annual Great Indiana Bake-Off was in full swing. Grandmas battling it out over cobbler. Teenagers screaming over burnt muffins. Judges eating themselves into diabetic stupors. And then came the new category. Savory pies, Innovation Division. Chuck entered the tent with a meat pie so aromatic, so rich, so flaky and moist that 3 judges cried before tasting it. It was divine. A buttery crust, a tender, almost sweet meat filling, hints of time, regret, and mystery. One judge said, "It tastes like victory and tears." Another said, "It tastes noble." Chuck named it Old World Shepherd's Pie Deluxe. And he won, by a landslide. People asked for seconds. One lady proposed. A small child saluted him. Then someone asked a question. A food blogger, 19 years old, vegan, wearing a Nirvana shirt ironically, asked, "Hey man, what's in the pie?" Chuck paused, smiled, and with all the confidence of a man who had nothing to lose and everything to ruin, he said, "Horse." Silence. One spoon dropped. A priest fainted. "You fed us horse." Chuck nodded. Not just horse. Racehorse. Retired. Local. Very tender. The fallout. Panic spread like melted butter. The pie tent emptied. Judges ran to the porta potties. A woman threw up into a papier-mâché apple tart. Chuck was asked to leave. He refused. He insisted it was ethically sourced and fiscally efficient.
The sheriff was called. The pie was confiscated. Chuck was not arrested because, technically, he hadn't broken any existing law. Yet. Enter State Representative Doris Teagarden. Doris didn't care about nuance. She cared about her image, her stomach, and the fact that she had unknowingly praised horseflesh on live television. So she wrote a law that Monday morning. No person shall prepare, sell, or distribute meat pies intended for human consumption that contain any part of equine species. Passed, signed, slam dunk. Chuck was banned from competitive baking. He moved his business to Kentucky and now sells mystery empanadas from a trailer with no windows. The aftertaste. To this day, Hoosiers don't joke about meat pies. Every county fair includes a poster that reads, "Know your filling." There are whisper campaigns. There are conspiracy theories. Was Chuck really the only one? What happened to the second place pie? Why did it smell familiar? Chuck's defense. He still maintains he did nothing wrong. They never said what meat I couldn't use. Cows eat grass. Horses eat grass. They're practically cousins. He also claims horses are majestic and delicious, which did not help his case. Today in Indiana, the law still holds. You cannot legally feed someone a horse pie. You can punch a man at a basketball game. You can drive 90 in a combine. But you cannot, under any circumstance, turn a mare into a Monday night dinner. Moral of the story: trust your instincts. If it tastes too rich, too smooth, too intelligent, spit it out. And if someone ever tells you, "Don't worry, it's imported," ask them, "From where?" And if they wink, run.
Chapter 10. Nebraska. It is illegal for a parent to cut their daughter's hair without a license. Some laws are born from logic. Others are born from lawsuits. And a rare few, like this one, are born from a father, a pair of rusty kitchen scissors, and a 7-year-old girl who now has trust issues and a permanent side part. Welcome to Nebraska, the state that brought you Arbor Day, Kool-Aid, and, apparently, a full government ban on daddy haircuts. According to state code, no person shall engage in the cutting or styling of a female minor's hair for compensation or domestic purposes without a valid cosmetology license. Translation: no license equals no snip. Even if she's your kid. Even if you think you're just cleaning up the ends. Even if your only tool is a dull pair of scissors and unearned confidence. Why? Because one man tried to give his daughter bangs, and instead he gave Nebraska a reason to fear fathers with YouTube tutorials. The man, the myth, the mistake. Meet Ronnie Dale Eckhart, age 39. Occupation: forklift operator. Hobby: fixing things that don't need fixing. Catchphrase: how hard can it be? Answer: harder than you think, Ronnie. His daughter's name was Paisley Rain,
a bright, sassy second grader with a Hello Kitty backpack and extremely clear opinions about her appearance. One morning before school picture day, Paisley told her dad, "I want layers, like Beyoncé." Ronnie nodded like a man who had just been handed a rocket launcher labeled easy to use. The kitchen salon of doom. Armed with one pair of discount kitchen scissors, 2 paper towels, a vision forged in delusion. Ronnie sat Paisley on a stool, put on the soundtrack to Frozen, and said, "Just say when it looks right." 4 seconds in, he panicked. Snip. The first layer was ear level. The second was closer to neck vein. The third just kind of vanished. He turned her sideways and mumbled, "It's called a modern asymmetrical cut." She started crying. He started sweating. The scissors fell. The cat ran. The paper towels caught fire on the stove. They both screamed. The fallout. At school, Paisley refused to remove her knit cap. The teacher, assuming abuse or cult initiation, called the counselor. Photos were taken. A local stylist was brought in under emergency conditions and allegedly said, "I've seen war zones less chaotic than this child's crown." The story went viral after someone posted side-by-side before and after pics with the caption, "From Beyoncé to baloney in under 10 minutes." A reporter from Omaha News did a segment called "Dad, Stop Cutting My Hair." Public panic followed. Legislation, the Great Haircut Crackdown. State Senator Lynette Goodweather, a former beauty school graduate turned policy hawk, stepped in. She introduced Bill 1032. In order to safeguard the bodily autonomy and psychological stability of female minors, no haircut may be performed by an unlicensed party, even within familial settings. People laughed. Then they saw the photos. Then they stopped laughing. The bill passed with 93% support and a silent nod from every hairdresser in the state. Ronnie today. Ronnie's forbidden to come within 6 feet of scissors unless supervised. He now runs a Facebook page called Dads Who Shouldn't Trim. It has 27,000 members. His daughter? Hair's grown back. Trust? Not so much. She now sees a licensed stylist named Destiny who wears bedazzled Crocs and charges $75 for layered trauma correction. Today in Nebraska, this law is real. Technically, if you give your daughter a haircut in your own kitchen and you're not licensed, you're committing a misdemeanor. And yes, that includes trimming bangs, especially bangs. Those are the gateway drug to domestic styling disasters. Moral of the story: there are 3 things you should never attempt without training: landing a plane, heart surgery, and giving your child a haircut before picture day. Because hair is trust, and trust is legally protected in Nebraska. So next time your daughter hands you scissors and says, "Just a trim," run. Not because you'll ruin her hair, but because you might go to jail.
Chapter 11. Illinois. It's illegal to be too attractive on a Monday. You think you've had bad Mondays? Try living in Illinois, where looking too good on a Monday can technically be illegal. No, we're not talking about a dress code, not a workplace HR violation, not a biblical sermon about modesty. We're talking actual municipal code in the town of Cicero, Illinois, which states, "No citizen shall engage in attention-seeking attire, excessive grooming, or flirtatious behavior of a provocative nature on Mondays within town limits." Let me be perfectly clear. If you're hot in Cicero on a Monday, you're in danger. So where did this come from? Well, buckle your seatbelt and remove your eyeliner. Because this one involves a mayor's wife, a competitive tango, and a perfume cloud that led to a political collapse. The incident that launched a law. Let me take you back to 1972. It was a humid April morning, and Cicero was hungover from the weekend. Bars were empty, shirts were wrinkled, the town smelled faintly of Miller High Life and broken promises. Enter Veronica Lucille Romano, age 34, dance instructor, amateur astrologer, and someone who wore heels louder than her personality. She was gorgeous, unapologetically so, and she knew it. Every Monday, Veronica strutted through downtown Cicero to teach her tango class at the rec center. Her perfume, a fog of roses and warfare. Her skirt, the approximate length of a credit card receipt. Her effect, nuclear. Mayor Vincent Sweaty Vinnie Campanello. Vinnie Campanello had two weaknesses, gravy and Veronica Lucille Romano. Every Monday, he'd leave his office to inspect potholes and just happen to stroll past the rec center at the exact moment Veronica bent over to unlock the door. This went on for months, until one Monday, things escalated. The tango that broke Cicero. Veronica was holding auditions for her Monday night tango group, a sensual dance team that performed at state fairs and occasionally in parking lots for tips. Mayor Vinnie insisted on inspecting the floorboards. The dance began. Vinnie twirled. He dipped. He fell. Directly onto Veronica's thigh, which, unfortunately, was caught on camera by a local TV crew covering a segment called Rec Center Revival. Within 24 hours, the video went public. The mayor's wife packed her bags. Cicero became a meme before memes existed. The caption was brutal. Mayor falls for tango queen, literally. Damage control, the law is born. To save face, Mayor Vinnie declared a town emergency. He blamed Monday seductions for corrupting officials and distracting men from potholes. So he and the city council passed an ordinance. No excessive beauty, flirtation, grooming rituals, or seductive attire shall be displayed by citizens on Mondays as a civic courtesy and to prevent political instability. Enforcement was selective. Who defines excessive beauty? No one. Which made it perfect. Veronica? She was fined $85, twice. A man named Jerry, who wore a sheer tank top to buy eggs, arrested. Local legend claims a woman was once pulled over for eyeliner that threatened public order. Veronica today? She moved to New Mexico, teaches ballroom dance and sells crystals. Once a year, she returns to Cicero wearing a prom dress on a Monday just to see what happens. Last time she visited, 3 mailmen crashed their vans. The law today, still on the books, still unenforced, still stupid. But technically, if you show up to Cicero's town hall in fishnets and highlighter, they can ask you to leave, especially if it's a Monday. Moral of the story? Beauty may be subjective, but in Cicero, it's a crime if it's on a Monday. So, if you're planning a photo shoot, flirtation, or face beat, schedule it for Tuesday. And if anyone calls you a criminal for looking good, smile and say, "Officer, I was born this way."
Chapter 12. Florida. It's illegal to sing in a swimsuit in public. You're in Florida. It's hot. It's humid. You're sweating in places you didn't know had pores. Naturally, you put on your swimsuit, head to the beach, and feel a song in your heart. But hold that note, Beyoncé, because in the great state of Florida, you just broke the law. According to old municipal code, no individual shall sing or hum audibly while attired in a bathing suit in public spaces. That's right. You can sunbathe, you can strut, you can even juggle coconuts. But the moment you start belting Bohemian Rhapsody in a bikini, you've committed a misdemeanor. So why does this law exist? Well, it starts, as all good Florida stories do, with a drunk Elvis impersonator, a jealous lifeguard, and one very salty judge. Miami Beach, 1953. The beaches were packed. The sand burned like Satan's popcorn. And at the heart of it all stood Ricky Elvis Molino, a local lifeguard with a pompadour and absolutely no musical training whatsoever. Every afternoon, Ricky would strip down to his baby blue trunks, hop on a beach chair, and sing. Loud, off-key, unrequested. He performed every Elvis song known to man, sometimes simultaneously. His rendition of Love Me Tender caused 2 seagulls to fight mid-air and a small child to cry uncontrollably. But Ricky believed in his destiny. He believed the sand was his stage, and he believed his voice was what the people needed. The people did not agree. Enter Sandy DeMarco. Sandy was a real singer. Jazz lounge, classy, silky voice, 0 tan lines. She vacationed in Miami every June, hoping for peace, daiquiris, and time to rehearse her set list. But every day she walked the boardwalk, she was ambushed by, well, it's 1 for the money, 2 for the... Stop it, Ricky. Sandy filed 9 complaints to the Parks Department. She petitioned the city to silence the sunburnt siren. Nothing worked. So she did what any reasonable artist would do. She performed Summertime in a one-piece on the same beach, right in front of him. It was beautiful. It was soulful. It was illegal. The lawsuit heard round the beach. Ricky called the cops, claimed vocal harassment, said Sandy singing made his eardrum twitch and distracted him from lifeguard duties, which he hadn't performed in 2 years. The case went to a local municipal court where Judge Herbert Lemons, age 84, presided. He hated 3 things: jazz, the beach, people having fun. So he ruled, there shall be no audible vocal performance while wearing swimwear in public areas of Miami-Dade. And with that, Sandy was fined $50 and told to hum indoors. The ripple effect. The story hit the news. Woman fined for singing in swimsuit. Florida declares war on joy. Other towns adopted similar ordinances just in case. It became a minor trend. Tallahassee even added a clause banning whistling in Speedos. To this day, while rarely enforced, the law technically still stands. Modern-day interpretations. Every so often, a street performer challenges it. In 2007, a woman in a tankini sang Shallow on Clearwater Beach. She was asked to leave. In 2014, a man in swim trunks rapped on a pier. His speaker was confiscated. In 2022, a TikToker tried to duet in a monokini and got a ticket for disturbing vibes. What's the real crime here? Some say it's about decency. Others say it's about noise pollution. But those who know the legend of Ricky and Sandy say the law exists for one reason only: beach jealousy. Because no one wants to be outshined in swimwear, especially not by someone who can hit a high note and a tan line simultaneously. The moral of the story. In Florida, you can ride an alligator. You can name your kid Orange. You can marry your cousin if you whisper. But don't you dare sing in swimwear. Because in the eyes of the law, a song and a swimsuit together are public indecency in stereo. So next time you're on Miami Beach and the ocean breeze inspires a melody, whisper it. Hum it under your breath. Or better yet, wait until Tuesday. Chapter 13. Alabama. Playing dominoes on a Sunday is illegal. Now you might think of dominoes as a harmless pastime. A few old men slapping tiles down on a plastic table under a tree. A grandmother whispering double six like it's a prayer. A simple game, a tradition, a relic of slow afternoons and lemonade teeth. But in Alabama, it's something more, something sinister, something loud, something apparently illegal on Sundays. Yes, you heard that right. Under Alabama's antiquated blue laws, Playing dominoes or cards on a Sunday is a misdemeanor. Why? Well, it's a mix of gambling panic, holy day hysteria, and one very dramatic church committee. Let me take you back to Selma, 1919, where everything started with a man, a widow, and a domino that shattered a congregation. The Lord's Day versus Larry J. Larry J. Pickens was an oil can salesman with a righteous mustache and an addiction to two things: sweet tea, winning at dominoes. He wasn't a gambler, not officially, but he didn't play for peanuts either. No, sir. He played for apple pies, pig's feet, and, in one scandalous instance, a goat. Larry ran Sunday games in his backyard under a magnolia tree. It started small: 4 friends, light wagering, a pitcher of tea. But soon word spread. The stakes got higher. The pie slices got thicker. The tension electric. Enter Widow Hattie Mae. Hattie Mae Cartwright was a devout church lady, Bible in one hand, casserole in the other, known for 3 things: her lemon squares, her iron stare, and her deep spiritual hatred of noise that ain't Jesus. Hattie lived next door to Larry, and every Sunday as she tried to pray, she heard, "Slap, double 4, you old coward! Slap, give me that pie, Clarence!" At first, she prayed for patience. Then she prayed for silence. Then she marched to First Baptist of Selma and called an emergency meeting. The domino trial of 1919. In what local papers would call the Selma slapdown, Hattie Mae lobbied for a town-wide ban on all games of chance and skill on the Sabbath. Her argument was simple. If Jesus flipped tables over money changers, what would he do over dice and dominoes? The town split in 2. Team Hattie Mae, God, church, silence. Team Larry J, sweet tea, dominoes, and personal liberty. The courtroom was full. Larry showed up wearing a bow tie and holding a domino like it was a sacred relic. Hattie Mae brought 6 casseroles and a choir. After 2 hours of passionate yelling and 1 fainting incident, lemon squares were involved, the judge ruled, in observance of the Sabbath and public decency, the game of dominoes shall be prohibited on Sundays within town limits. And thus a law was born, later codified across counties, never fully repealed. Modern-day enforcement. Is it still enforced? Almost never. But technically, in 1996, a group of retirees were told to tone it down at a park pavilion. In 2009, a sheriff cited 2 teenagers for playing Uno after church. In 2020, a meme about Alabama's law went viral, prompting confused TikTokers to stage domino rebellions in parking lots. Why it stuck? Because Alabama, like many southern states, still has remnants of old blue laws that restrict behavior on Sundays. Buying alcohol? Limited. Hunting? Sometimes banned. Dominoes? Sinful slapfest. These laws linger like porch ghosts, mostly forgotten, but not gone. Moral of the story. In Alabama, Sunday is for worship. self-reflection, regret, not for games, gambling, and definitely double sixes. So, if you find yourself in Selma on a warm Sunday afternoon, tempted to pull out a box of dominoes, don't, unless you want to face the ghost of Hattie Mae, wielding a Bible and a casserole, whispering, "The Lord don't play."
Chapter 14. Oklahoma. It's illegal to make ugly faces at dogs. This isn't a joke. This isn't a meme. This is actual legislation that once passed through the trembling hands of a committee full of adults with law degrees. In Oklahoma, it's technically illegal to make an ugly or threatening face at a dog with the intent to frighten, provoke, or disturb said animal. Let that sink in. You, human. Dog, dog. If you squint your eyes, flare your nostrils, or do that thing where your lips curl like a goblin, and the dog takes it personally, that's a fine. Maybe even jail time, depending on the officer's mood and the dog's emotional state. But where did this law come from? Well, gather round. Because this isn't just a story about dogs. It's a story about rivalry, trauma, and one truly unfortunate face. Meet Calvin Cabbage Henderson. Calvin lived in a small Oklahoma town where everyone either had a pickup truck, a Bible, or a German Shepherd named Duke. Calvin had none of these things. What he did have was a face like a dried peach, a lifelong allergy to dogs, and an attitude problem that smelled like expired milk. He hated dogs, said they were narcissistic wolves, claimed they smelled fear and property taxes. And Calvin especially hated Duke, the town sheriff's prized German Shepherd and 3-time winner of Best Paws in Pawnee County. The bark that broke the man. Every morning, Duke sat outside the sheriff's office like a furry deity. He had medals, a vest, fans. And every morning, Calvin walked past Duke and muttered insults like, "Furry cop," "toe-licking tyrant," "You smell like hot carpet." Duke didn't react, because Duke was a professional. But Calvin snapped. One Wednesday afternoon, he crouched in front of the dog, took a deep breath, and unleashed the face. Eyebrows curled inward like beetles in love. Teeth bared like a haunted accordion. One eye twitched. The other blinked Morse code. It was ungodly. Duke whimpered. He yelped. He ran into the sheriff's office and knocked over a potted plant. Witnesses say it took 3 pets and a treat to calm him down. The legal fallout. Sheriff Bill saw it all. He marched outside and said, "You just committed emotional terrorism on my dog." Calvin, unfazed, replied, "Tell your mutt to get therapy."
2 hours later, a town meeting was called. The vote was swift, unanimous, and dramatic. By Friday, the following law had been drafted. It shall be unlawful for any citizen to willfully contort their face in a manner deemed ugly, disturbing, or emotionally threatening to any canine animal, domesticated or leashed, within town limits. The punishment? First offense, warning and dog apology. Second, $100 fine. Third, community service walking rescue poodles in rain boots. Calvin's fate. He became a legend. Children dared each other to do the face in front of the library. Artists painted his mug on murals under the title Dog Whisperer But Mean. Eventually, Calvin moved to New Mexico, where he raises lizards and avoids eye contact with all living things. Modern implications. Does anyone enforce this? Rarely. But animal rights groups have cited it in campaigns. Some towns in Oklahoma still include it in community training. And yes, it's still on the books. So if you're visiting Oklahoma and you see a dog, smile, even if your teeth are weird, because Fido might be watching, and so might a very serious officer with a clipboard and a love for labradoodles. The moral of the story. Sometimes laws exist to protect the voiceless, and sometimes to protect the passionate. Because in Oklahoma, dogs have feelings, and if you're the kind of person who weaponizes your face, you better be ready to face the consequences.
Chapter 15. New York. You can't walk around with an ice cream cone in your pocket on Sundays. There are dumb laws. There are weird laws. And then there's this law, a masterpiece of absurdity. Yes, in the great state of New York, it is technically illegal to carry an ice cream cone in your back pocket on Sundays. Why? To protect the Lord's Day from dairy-related crime? To prevent sticky cheeks on church pews? To save pigeons from moral collapse? Not quite. You see, this law exists because of one thing and one thing only: horse theft. The original criminal life hack. Let's rewind to the 1800s, when horses were not just transportation. They were property, wealth, and social status. Stealing a horse was serious business, and horse thieves were creative. But the smartest, dumbest, most ice cream-related strategy came from the minds of con men too clever for their own good. Here's how it worked. You couldn't legally steal a horse that followed you on its own. So instead of yanking reins and fleeing, you'd put a melting ice cream cone in your back pocket. A horse, curious and opportunistic, would follow, sniffing, nibbling, trotting along like a sugar-hungry stalker. You'd walk out of town innocently, horse in tow. Crime committed without technically committing a crime. Lawmakers, oh hell no. Eventually, people caught on.
farmers started losing horses to guys with vanilla bait but criminal intent. One lawmaker reportedly shouted, "If these fools want to commit fraud using dessert, we're going to criminalize the cone." Hence, the law was passed. No ice cream cones in back pockets, especially on Sundays, because you know God is watching. It became the perfect fusion of moral panic, dairy regulation, Sabbath virtue signaling. Only in America could sugar, Sundays, and stolen stallions collide like this. Why only Sundays? Some theories include most horse thefts happened during Sunday services, when townsfolk were distracted at church. Blue laws banned certain activities on Sundays, and this fit the vibe of outlawing fun. One mayor's horse got stolen on a Sunday by a cone-carrying con artist, and he never forgave dairy. True? Probably not. Funny? Always. Modern-day enforcement. Let's be honest. No one's going to jail over a drip cone in the jeans today. But, technically, if Officer Brambleton of upstate NY sees you loitering near a stable with a butter pecan sticking out your back pocket on the Lord's Day, you might get a stern warning. Or worse, a citation for horse solicitation. YouTube pranks and ice cream crimes. You bet people have tested this. In 2013, a viral video showed a man leading a pony into a Taco Bell parking lot using a melting cone. In 2017, BuzzFeed attempted to interview real cops about the law. One said, "I'm not touching that story unless someone gets trampled." A group of Brooklyn hipsters even made a documentary titled "Lick and Run: The Cone Conspiracy." Spoiler, it won't win any awards. The moral of the story: if you take nothing else away from this journey, remember that laws are sometimes written not by logic, but by revenge, pettiness, or lactose intolerance. Because when it comes to American legislation, you can own a flamethrower in some states. You can name your child Toilet. But walk around with an ice cream cone in your pocket on a Sunday. Now you've gone too far. The end of the series. That's it. 15 chapters of glorious nonsense, historical pettiness, accidental comedy, and a nation trying its best to stay upright while tripping over its own constitution. If you're still here, drop a comment. What's the weirdest law in your country or state? And if you do happen to have a horse, we ask nicely, keep your hands off the cones, especially